Hey everyone, how you doing today? Thought I'd get a video out showing you a bunch of updates and things to some SCAR stuff and work on the big space carrier. To start with, though, I'm going to start just showing you what's going on with the SCAR. Obviously, this made it to the workshop. I forget what day that was. Friday, Saturday, something like that. Sunday? Not sure. It's all blur now. Um, but, okay, so that is done. Um, this is now complete as well, ready to go. I'll take it for a little test drive here in a minute. And this is complete as well. This one I did a little trick on, and I'll show you what I did to it. I don't necessarily think I'm breaking the rules, I guess kind of, but I'll show you what I did here. And then this, I got two versions of this defense tower now, and they're both complete. Now this is version 1, and it's basically about what it looked like before. If you take a look inside of here, essentially you've got, well, this is all armored concrete, by the way, and it's a full armored concrete floor as well. I know that some tactics are people like to get under things with mining equipment and take it out from the bottom. So on this particular tower, I'm trying to avoid that being a plausible way of taking it on. Has Wi-Fi. I put like fuel, so you can kind of see it over here, and its generator over here. And then you have a ladder. These ladders are pretty slick. I'm really starting to like the ladders going on here. So I'm actually just climbing up at normal. And then at the top of the tower over here, there's just this empty room. So this is version 1. It does have light and sensor for that stuff too. Now version 2, what I did is decided to see what it would take to add a solar system to it, give it some more power. So I came up with this kind of design, which I hope fits good because it's kind of, it was meant to look like it was added on later, like, hey, they wanted to make this thing more efficient, and they just kind of welded some crap to and put some solar panels on here, kind of similar to what the other part over there looks like. But beyond the solar panels, which is actually pretty nice. Now, I love these angled ones, but one side of these angled ones, unless the sun's directly overhead, would probably not function very well. Like you can see here, this is not getting much juice on these solar panels. These ones facing straight up are doing quite well, and the one over here actually facing towards the sun does all right too. So that is that. But inside, not much different. This one does have O2 in it, so this one is oxygenated, and in the top up here, basically, you got some O2 tanks, a ventilator, and a capacitor. So it's just set up a little bit better. Now, between the two defense towers, if you look at like build times, the first one, it has a build time of 35 minutes and 34 seconds. You can see the materials. I had to kind of go through, and I was trying to use the least amount of different kinds of materials as possible. It's still got 3 cobalt ignite, and I tracked that down to the ammo controller. It's required. It's got to use the 3 cobalt. I can't make it work otherwise. Now the solar version, which honestly would probably use a lot less fuel, this one has a 40-minute and 50-second build time. So it's about, I don't know, we'll say 5-6 minutes longer in build time. Pretty much the same resources, a little bit more of several of them, but not by much. So I don't really want to release 2 versions, so right now I'm looking at just releasing the more advanced version with O2 and solar. Although, I mean, cosmetically speaking, I do like the one without the solar panels as well. The solar panels have a way of hiding some of the little body architecture, but not too badly, I don't think. Most of it was kind of kept open, so it's not like totally hiding it. So that is that part. Now, I did update another ship on the workshop. It's already done, and updated, and that is the MX2. For some reason, I thought I had updated this before, and I did before, but that was a big conversion when I kind of rebuilt the body and made it workable with a 10 or 11, something like that. But now it's A12, and basically it does have its CPU tier block. It is tier 2. Made a little modification on the inside. Put the CPU tier block right over here. Not much else has changed. But if you notice, the old MX2 had ammo boxes, the old traditional ammo boxes. So now, when you're looking at parts for SVs, it does not have an ammo box available, but it's totally valid. It still works. And in a lot of cases, I really miss it because not everything I want to have a big ammo controller system on. And that was especially true for this little guy over here. Now, the problem I had with this one, as you can see, it also has an ammo box on it. And if you're wondering how I got that ammo box on here when it's not even listed in the part selection, I will show you. But to explain why I did this is, to start with, I don't have room for 2 controller systems in the body of this. I would have to drastically distort how this thing looked and widen it up and do a bunch of stuff to try to get 2 separate controllers because you can't have them touching. And that was my biggest issue. And the fact is, originally this was an ammo controller, and I had it set at about 700 on ammo on this, but it had no storage controller. And I was like, well, that really sucks. And I could make it bigger, yeah, like where I got it at 1500 now. But what's the point? I mean, you don't need to carry that much ammo on this little scout thing. So I switched that to a controller and then slopped in a traditional ammo box. And since this thing has 2 Gatling guns and 1 minigun turret, all the ammo that it takes are 15 mil. And one of these little boxes allows you to store 1,000 rounds. So it's, I think, appropriate for this. So I went through and did this and put in that, so you get 1,500 on storage, plus 3 large cargo crates and O2. Well, there's your ventilator and armor locker. It is lacking a fridge. I might have to modify that yet. I think it might want to have a fridge as well. And then they kind of put in a bunch of parts in here. So you got your Wi-Fi. There's a detector somewhere. Where did I put that now? I thought I had a detector. If it doesn't, maybe I'll get that rolling. Yeah, it's got a detector. Okay. And I even put in an RCS on this. I had a little bit of extra CPU. And to be honest, well, you can see where the CPU is coming out. In fact, I still got more CPU left. But what I really like about this thing is it's fun. It is I built quite a lot of HVs and stuff in the past, and I think this one is just the funnest one ever to control. And it's very, very agile in mountains. Now, first of all, you can actually do wheelies with it by pulling up like I am. But as in going over terrain and things, oh my gosh, this thing just, I don't know, maybe it changes with A12 too, but this thing is just like flying a SV almost in some cases. I have not found any mountains I could not climb easily, no matter how steep they were. In fact, at one I kind of went up almost a complete vertical incline, but it just gets around. Now, granted, I don't have weights and volumes on right now, and I will test this along with several other things on a different video, including the space carrier in weights and volumes environment pretty soon, probably this week. Got several things to test. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this little HV here. Yeah, check out that for a stud. You wonder how did I park the HV on top of here? Well, that's how. Another thing too, one other thing that, and maybe it's just, maybe I just don't do enough driving around, but one thing I noticed too is say I'm over here and there's a tree in my way, if I pull up, like do a wheelie, I can just, not on that example. Let me try over here. Oh yeah, you can actually just jump trees, or at least small trees, by pulling up on them. I've was kind of getting used to that there. But yeah, fun little craft. It's responsive, it's agile, and it gets around quickly and nicely and doesn't get stuck. Now, granted, it's just a low-level open air thing. Tier 1 statistics on this, about a 19-minute build time. No rare anything. Um, it's open air, not ideal for all planets, for sure. But there's no way I can put an enclosed cockpit on a design like this and have it look anything like what it's supposed to look like. Okay, so now I just want to show you what I did to get this ammo box on here. So when I had this MX2 here and I was kind of updating it, I went in and let's do it again. Let's say I wanted to get an ammo box to a different HV. So I will get into the N key tool here under selection. I will touch on one of these boxes and I will hit copy, and then I will remove selection. Okay, so that's pretty simple, right? Copy, remove selection. Now I'll go over to something else, like say this one. Now this one has a standard ammo controller on it. So I'll get back into the N key tool and I will put a little selection here. So I just touched on it somewhere, and then I will hit paste. And bam, lo and behold, we have an ammo box. Granted, it's screwed up because I pasted it like right into another block here, but that is how it's done. So pretty simple. I'm going to undo that though, if I can. I never actually pasted it in the ship. Actually, that's the deal. If I were to go through and paste it, then it would clear away the other block. Now I got an ammo box on this traditional ammo box. But let's undo those changes, and I will remove the selection here. So now on this thing, now this HV is a tier 2. It's designed as a more of a cargo explorer HV. It's pretty cheap. It does require a little bit of this stuff here, and I gotta dig in and try to figure out what on here is needing the slight amount of resources here yet. I think actually a lot of it has to do with the door on the back of it. It's the same thing I ran into with the defense tower, is that if you put in an armored door, it requires titanium rods. This has an armored door on it. So if you just looked at those stats there, say, get rid of the door, and look at it again. Oh, that didn't do it. What the heck? Okay, I'm wrong. Oh, I was thinking base. Base has armored doors. Yeah, the SVs don't. So I want to see if I can figure this out yet on what actually is using this stuff, because I'm trying to keep it not being used, but it is minimal. So this has about a 48-minute and something time. 1500 ammo, 1500 harvest, and 14k storage, plus some extra cargo boxes kind of positioned around the hull. Now this thing, I put in 2 RCSs as well, or 3. 1. Okay, I had 2 in it, and then I removed 1 again. I think that was the deal. But this thing, it doesn't turn. It's not as snappy as the other one, but it is also quite capable of crossing terrain very easily, and pretty quick and easy to get around. So I do like that. Early on, I had a lot of problems with a lot of other things, like trying to navigate a lot of terrain. You get stuck easily and things like that and whatnot. So both of these actually perform pretty well. And like Lure, technically, this I'm going to call a runner, where the other one I might change its name. Right now I got it called a seeker, but it's really more of a scout thing, so I might try to find a more appropriate name. the idea behind these two would be that this race would be doing a lot of, well, considered illegal activities. So this might be running contraband, and this one or two of these other things might be in front of it. Um, making sure the path is clear and like looking around or doing like some different little missions, scouting missions, things like that. So it's kind of like yeah, contraband runner vehicle, at least in lure, but in gameplay, it's got a couple turrets, a couple miniguns, and storage, and can do a little bit of tree harvesting and things like that. But it's not a miner either. So now plans on things I want to build for the Scar in the semi-near future, basically after the space carrier is complete, is I really want to get into building a tank for them. They don't have any SVs right now, so probably a couple SVs, at least like a starter type and like to do a combat SV. Um, I'm not gonna. I think at this point in time with tanks, I pretty much just want to build. If I'm gonna go through and build a tank, I want it to be a beefy tank. I want it to be able to take on the really tough stuff in the game. So like the MCRN Ballista. But and here's where I'm excited to build a tank is the MCRN Ballista. When I first built it, I was capped out at 70,000 CPU. So this fit within 70,000 CPU, at least when it was released. Let's see where it's at now. Yeah, it still is. And it actually has a little bit of leftover at this point too, which actually enough left over to add quite a few RCS to it, which would probably help. But I realize that even though this has pretty close to max turrets, short of 2 Gatling guns, I could go bigger with it and make probably a more maneuverable, more armored version of something like this. And that would be the goal, since you got the extra 30,000 CPU now. It would allow for some more things. Now this little whatever I spent very little time on, this was, I'm not going to keep it, or heavily change it, but I was a concept of creating a SV to move HVs. Of course, it would have to be at least big enough to move this tank. This would probably be an MCRN creation, I think. Or it could be Scar. I don't know. Or both. Probably not both. But I would need to make it bigger. Now, another thing, I was trying to go like asymmetrical on it on the front. So I could use it for Excalibur's challenge as well. And that's the thing. Even if I build this, yeah, sure, I can do some things in asymmetrically and probably have it look at least plausible. But when it comes down to hardcore things like thruster positions and stuff, I can't. I'm not willing to just put them willy-nilly so they're asymmetrical from one side to the other. It looks, it wouldn't look plausible, and it just detract completely from the looks and probably performance of the vehicle. So I don't know. I'll keep messing with it. But this obviously is too small of a platform for what it would need to be to pick up and like basically load up tanks or HVs and park them in this big parking slot over here and then take off into space or wherever you're going with it. But I just need to make a bigger version of this. I wanted it to have a lot of storage and a heck of a lot of lift thrust to be able to take these things, be able to bring them down to even high gravity planets with heavy tanks and storage. So it's probably going to undoubtedly end up being a tier 4 SV. All right, well, so that pretty much covers the updates on the Scar. Now up on the space carrier here. Now the space carrier, I am happy to say that I had all the interior set up with light sensors and oxygen throughout the ship. I remodeled all the last rooms and things that needed to be remodeled. I added another little area. What's left on here is still I left this. I didn't do this room. Okay, so this is the one little place I didn't do yet. and I haven't gotten back to trying to deal with this front CV that I wanted here. Now, I have a lot of issues. Now, in the comments, there was another suggestion on dealing with the insane roll that I'm getting on any of these skinnier ships that go in here, especially with heavy lift thrust, is to put the thrusters in the center. It sounds good, but in practical, trying to make the ship work and have a walk-through path on the inside with thrusters down the middle of it is just a nightmare. It's just not wide enough. And the thrusters, um, if I ran like two side by side, or if I put one in the middle, it's a 2x2 if I go with the large thrusters, and if I go with extra large, then it would be 3x3. And this basically you would get, say the thruster was here, okay. Um, this is high heat blocks here, so I'd have to push the player out another block over to here, which I guess kind of fits around it with one square. So basically, I'm saying it could work, but it would just be, I don't know. I want to like what I put here too, and that would take up an awful lot of interior room, at least in the back portion of it. One other issue I realized on my other two designs too is I've got this lip here, and it's more of a cosmetic thing, but I really like it. And that limits at least the back portion of this CV to be only 4 blocks high, because it cannot come up to this block because that's too close to that block. It needs one whole block on all sides around it to fit. And yeah, any kind of half block usage doesn't work. So, even if I were to make these like all half blocks and put them off to the one side, it seems like it doesn't help me fit something better if it was one block wider. So one other idea I had on this is I was looking at this big chunk down here, and I'm like, what if this whole thing here was a detachable thing? Now there's nothing really important down here. Well, there kind of is. There's a couple side strafing thrusters. But this room is just, it's here, but it doesn't really serve a purpose. I could technically chop off this whole chunk of the ship, well, at least to a certain extent, and have that as actually part of a bigger ship that can fit on the front of it. And that was some concept. But with screwing around with this, now I'm not ruling out building this, and I do kind of want to build a part because I think it'd be really nice for function. Something you could bring with you that would sit there. But the qualifications of this, and it was brought up a lot of times too, where it's on the front of the ship, it's going to be heavily exposed to combat and fire. You'd probably want to have a shield on this thing. Probably want to have some guns, plus the mining, plus heavy armor on the front, and a lot of lift capacity, and it's a really challenging build. And what I'm thinking is, rather than spending a whole lot more time trying to work on this, and I'm not liking any of my results so far, and I really don't, I understand the point of having the thrusters down the center, but man, that would just make such a impressively terrible interior on it that I don't like it in some ways. So I do and I don't. Biggest problem I've got is width, and I don't know. So basically, rather than dwelling and delaying the actual carrier, I think I'm going to not try to work on this so much right now, and just keep on banging away at the carrier and get that released, and try to come up with something later on after the fact that can fit up here, just to save a little time. And I'm, well, quite frankly, very frustrated with building this part of it right now. But if anybody else wanted to ever attempt anything that would fit here, let's see. Oh, I guess I can't put base concrete blocks on here. I was just going to try to give you a little bit of measurement on what's going on here. So this is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, it can be 9 blocks wide. It can be really any length you would want, but I would probably want it at least, coming up to the front here. So what do we got here? One. Well, that was probably a bad way to do it. Here, let's. So 1, 2. Can't see what I'm doing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11, 12. Okay, so 9 by 25. The rear of it can only be 4 blocks tall um, for the last 3 blocks of it. So that is a little bit tricky too. So basically it has to have a complete block around on all sides of it. So 9 by 25 by 4. But the only part the 4 matters is on the last 3 blocks of it. Other than that, it can be taller. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. Now, other things that I've been doing to the carrier besides getting all those other rooms kind of complete. Well, I've been also tweaking out existing rooms. I decided to make one other change to this. Now, when you come into the cafeteria before, this side over here and the room behind it, a couple rooms behind it, were identical to the other side of the ship. So basically, when you're coming down in here, this is like more of a small platoon area where you get kind of a mass group of, I don't know, soldiers. And then on the front of this had a ammunition room, basically. So I've tweaked out these areas. Here, let me go to mood lighting. um, so I've been tweaking out these zones. I need more light in here. Still isn't right. But they were mirrored from one side to the other. So I didn't like that part. And it was my choice originally to tell the authors, like a different author built the front room here. I actually did this room, but they're just clone copies from one side to the other. And what I'm trying to do is get away from that as much as I can. So this room space here is under renovation, and so I kind of ripped out the walls right now. Um, I kept the bar up here, but I did some more work to this bar as well. I got to put the floor back in a little bit. This was originally mapped out by Red Baron, and it was kind of although colored differently, a clone model from one side to the other, which was also what I told him to do at the time. There's so much available space. Um, and then the front here, obviously on the other side, was going into an ammo conveyor system. But now I've redone this room, and it's not fully finished yet. I'll try to get a little more detail. But my thoughts behind this whole area, including this floor down here, which will be changing a lot, is to have a well, obviously UNN, so that would be coming from the Expanse lure, where the United Nations essentially basically have a diplomat VIP area for meetings and things like that. So I mean, this is kind of it's a big like a flagship for the MCRN, so they could host various other activities on it, which would help try to explain better why this has so many like luxury cruise ship items on the ship, at least in lore. Like the swimming pool and the big bars and the cafeterias and all the other crazy stuff that's on this ship is in fact that it was designed or ordered, from the military to be able to accommodate VIPs, diplomats, things like that as well on the ship. So I'm going to dedicate this side, since it was a mirrored copy of the other side, and that gets boring to walk around in, to a whole nother section dedicated for that. And it's right off from the cafeteria and not too far from going straight across here. You can instantly go into all the entertainment areas of the ship. 3 floors of entertainment areas over on the side here. At least, to better explain why it has so much entertainment areas on it. I think maybe you could pull that off. You know, if the MCRN were in peacetime for a period of time, um, and had such a big ship with so much space on it that they didn't really need, I guess, you know, maybe it would make sense, or maybe they designed it that way to start with, you know. But I'm just curious on your thoughts on that. I'm still collecting names. I'll put out the name list. I really got to get on that. So basically, before I put out the name list, which I will on the next video, I will tally up all the names from all the comments on the last uh, this video and the last two videos I did, plus if there was any comments in Steam on those videos with names, I will get them all added to the list. There's quite a few names already that I did collect. So, but I will look over it again. Um, so once I get this area done, well, hopefully today, that pretty much is all the interior of the ship and all this not fun sensor rigging, oxygen tweaking things have been completed throughout the ship, except for the bridge. I'm still going to add a little bit more to the bridge. Um, and then I get to shift my attention to LCDs and things like that. So uh, I dread it. I don't like doing LCDs because, well, I don't know. I just don't like doing LCDs. But you know, I need to boil down on it. Maybe I'll like doing LCDs again if I get a little bit better at all the new commands. I feel bad just using like the old school LCDs that I've always used. I liked them, I guess, for the most part. They're simple and to the point. But I just know what can be done this day and time, and I'm not doing it. So um, I kind of want to get to that point where I can do it, but you know, put it this way in a nutshell. With my free time, I prefer building things over building LCDs. That's just me. You know, it all takes time, and LCDs can take an incredible amount of time at this point to, you know, make the really, really cool, crazy designed ones. But I mean, that's just all time I'd rather do building things. So I'm not, I never really liked doing LCDs. It's just they're a necessity. Um, well, they certainly help. I wouldn't say even a necessity, but they certainly are cool. Um, and it's just what you can do with LCDs. And yeah, even looking at Crazy Z's newer LCDs versus, you know, when he was doing this stuff, I was just like, holy smokes, how in the heck do you even do something like this? And well, that's kind of how. So yeah, there's a lot. There's an awful lot you can do. This was actually simpler than I thought it would be, but you got to see his new stuff. That got far more complex even than what these are. I do believe. Well, to some extent. I mean, look at that. That's just. Phew. I wonder where the sensor is for this one. And there's been a lot of other off the, you know, stuff that you can't see, but a lot of changes behind the scenes too. Like with sensors, I ripped out all the individual room sensors that were across a lot of the different player or different authored rooms, and I put in basically one central sensor covering like all the rooms over here, and one over on the other side covering all these rooms over here. So basically, I've been simplifying a lot of the sensors, and just it ends up working better too because, you know, I'm not really all that concerned about turning off every light. Um, you know, if you're in an area, I'd rather have the lights in that area on because a lot of times there's uh, um, some level of bleed through between the walls and rooms that kind of help make the other areas brighter as well. So when you get into a section, rather than, you know, like technically in here, there's one, two, three, four, uh, and then five. There's five separate rooms. So yes, you could have set up a individual sensor for all five of the rooms, and then you got the hallway going through it that would also need a sensor, and it's obviously angled, which is especially hard to put sensors in for something like this. But by putting in one hidden sensor in an available block that was up in the ceiling area, um, and that covers the whole area. It's simpler and it actually works pretty efficiently. So I've been doing some of that. Specs wise, and I highly expect this to remain at this time should be size class 54, I think. It is possible it could hit 55, but it'll be right there. It depends how much is used on refurbishing that other room over there. But I removed a lot of stuff from the existing room too, so I actually kind of gained some space back in the process. But that's where everything stands at right now, and I just kind of wanted to show you that. I really want to get back into some build videos too, again, here pretty soon. But basically, just a little bit more to go on doing the space carrier because, like I said, I really want to get this done. As in the other Creel releases, um, I'm thinking pretty soon. I plan on like midweek, maybe Wednesday. I'll put out another one of these, and then maybe another one a few days later until all four of these are released. Um, so I'm kind of happy. I got a little backstock of stuff to release right now, so I can keep on focusing on these long-term projects. But so all of these will get out to the public at some point here. Probably less than a week apart on each one though, because I'm going to try to get them out a little quicker because there's a lot of them and a lot more I'd like to actually build. All right. Well, anyway, you all have yourselves a good day, and I will see you later.